Good morning, everyone. My name is Veronica Alexander. I'm the Assistant Dean for Development and Alumni Relations. I want to welcome you. I know that we have been excited about this day, spending time with you and giving you a chance to spend time with us as a community. And on today, we are focused on our community of alumni. We are delighted that you've taken the time to give us the time to tell you why this is a great place to be. And we know that you're going to feel that way, especially after this wonderful panel. So at this time, I'd like to turn this segment over to Cara Sandberg, class of 2012, who is the president of our Berkeley Law Alumni Association.
Thank you, Veronica. I'm so happy to see all of you here today. Welcome. So this is the highlight of the spring for me, the Admitted Students Weekend, the Alumni Brunch, and the Alumni Panel. We've brought together a group of esteemed alumni from varying backgrounds and varying professional experiences. And our hope today is that we'll be able to help you answer that question that I know is lingering in the back of everyone's mind. What do I do with this law degree? You've made the decision that you want to go to law school. Hopefully, you're making your decision to join us here at Berkeley. But the question of what you do in 3 years is huge. And so I hope that our panel today will be able to offer you some insights. I know you're going to love hearing from our panelists. They're some of our absolutely most fabulous alumni. They're people who are involved in the alumni community. They have regular interactions with Berkeley students and other alumni, and they're leaders in their communities. So with that, I'll just give you a brief introduction to who I am. As Veronica said, my name is Cara Sandberg. I'm the president of the Berkeley Law Alumni Association, and I graduated from Berkeley in 2012. I've had a really interesting experience as an alum. I've mostly served in public service. I've had 3 different clerkships, both at the California Supreme Court and Federal Appellate Court and Federal District Court. I've served as a deputy county counsel and an impact litigation fellow, and I've worked at a litigation boutique in San Francisco. My background, I think, is just a great example of how many different things you can do with your Berkeley Law degree. And what I'll just share as just a little gem for you to keep in mind is every single job I've ever gotten, every opportunity I've had a chance to enjoy as an alum, there's been another Berkeley Law alum behind that opportunity. Someone reaching back to pull me up and to open a door for me. And I think that really defines the Berkeley Law alumni community. We're often looking out for each other, and when we have great opportunities to share, our minds immediately go to who in the alumni community, which law student that I mentor or that I've gotten to know recently would really benefit from this opportunity. That's something that I hope that our alumni community will be able to share with all of you. So with that, I will ask our panelists to just introduce themselves with their class year, their current position, and anything interesting about your background you think this audience would like to hear. Start with you, Jose.
Thanks, Cara. I am Jose Lopez, class of 2009, born and raised in San Jose. So my locals here in the house, welcome. Great to have you. Went to Berkeley for undergrad as well as law school. In between, I was a public school teacher in New York City's public schools for a few years. I then made a complete pivot into corporate law and tech, and so I'm the kind of the tech representative up here for you today. And currently started off my career at a couple of corporate law firms, Cravath in New York City, doing a lot of Wall Street banking, securities, mergers and acquisitions work. Came back out to the Bay Area to Gunderson Detmer to work with startups and venture funds and founders. And I stayed in tech after that transition, a number of in-house roles, concluding with where I'm at today, which is Zeplin, a tech company in San Francisco, where I'm the general counsel.
Hi, I'm Tam Ma, class of 2011, And I am currently the Associate Vice President for Health Policy and Regulatory Affairs for the University of California's health system. And I am from Los Angeles, grew up there, and I am the first person in my family to graduate high school and college and go to law school. And I've had, just very grateful for my education at Berkeley, both undergrad and law school. I knew J-Lo from way back when and stuff. But I've spent most of my career in state public policy and politics. Before law school, I worked in the state legislature for 6 years. Very much encourage folks to take time off before going back to school. Came to law school thinking that I might want to do impact litigation or something, and definitely in the public interest and everything. But I think I've ended up veering back to policy because I feel like that's where it's most suited for kind of my personality and my work style and the kinds of things I'm interested in. And there's so many different ways that you can impact the law as a lawyer. You can litigate, implement the law. You can also help make the laws, and it's really, really fun doing that. And I'm looking forward to sharing more about that experience. But again, most of my experience has been in and around the state capitol, working in the legislature. I also served in the governor's office, Governor Newsom's office, for the first 4 years of his governorship, and I also worked at a legal aid organization and a healthcare consumer advocacy organization.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mano, Raju, and I'm the elected public defender of San Francisco. And a lot of things, I think, streams in my life got me there. My parents actually immigrated from a farming village in South India. I was raised on the East Coast, went to Columbia University undergraduate, came out to do a master's, and then ended up in law school here, which is better because at that point I was a resident, so less expensive at that point. But I was a line attorney in Contra Costa County Public Defender's Office, which is the county just it starts in Richmond and goes, for those of you from the Bay Area, goes out to Martinez, Pittsburgh, areas close to here. And then shifted over to the San Francisco Public Defender's Office, where I was a line attorney for a number of years, and the training director, managed the felony unit. And then was, when my predecessor passed, was appointed by the mayor and then elected and just re-elected in last November. And very exciting time to be doing public defender work. We have a very strong policy unit, strong immigration unit, criminal defense unit, very strong racial justice emphasis in the work that we do. So I'm looking forward to discussing that more with you as the panel unfolds.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Melinda Haag. I'm class of '87. So 40 years ago, I was sitting in those seats out there, which I can hardly believe. I am a partner at Paul Weiss, a law firm that is started in New York, but we have a a San Francisco office that I helped open 3 years ago. I do white-collar criminal defense, investigations, and trial work. I've gone back and forth in my career since graduating from Berkeley Law between private practice and the government. I served 3 times in United States Attorney's offices in California, first as an AUSA in Los Angeles, and then as an AUSA in San Francisco. And then during President Obama's administration, I had the honor of serving as the United States Attorney here in San Francisco, appointed by President Obama. And in the interim, between all those stints with the government, I was always in private practice, one time with a boutique criminal defense law firm in San Francisco, and other times with big international law firms, including the one that I'm with now, Paul Weiss. I loved being here at Berkeley Law, and have been really excited to talk with some of you this morning, and really excited to continue that conversation.
So, as you just heard, our panelists have really, really cool backgrounds, and I'm confident that we'll get to hear details from each of them. We will have some opportunity for questions at the end of our Q&A. As a way to make sure that you all do have time to ask your own questions, I'll be keeping my eye on the clock. And so do think in your mind as you're hearing from our panelists if you have questions that you'd like to ask them at the end of our session. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to ask all of our panelists to answer this question. And I'm going to start with you, Melinda. You've each taken different professional paths. What from your Berkeley Law experience most prepared you for your professional achievements?
I wanted to be a trial lawyer. That's why I came to law school. And the reason I decided that is that I was in San Diego. I went to UC San Diego. My father was a Navy pilot. My mother worked in public schools, and I had no lawyers. I didn't know anything about being a lawyer, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. But I had a lot of jobs when I was in undergrad and in law school to support myself while I was going to school. And one of my jobs was working for a criminal defense lawyer in San Diego named David Semko. He was fine. He was in court all the time, and I was in and out of the courtroom and courthouse all the time, running errands for him, bringing him lunch, making copies. And one time he was in trial, as he was often, a 3-week-long trial. I'll never forget it. There was a brother and sister charged with a crime, and there was a young woman representing the sister. I never talked to her at that time. I didn't meet her. I just watched her every day for 3 weeks. I decided I wanted to be just like her. She was unbelievable. And at that time, there weren't a lot of women in the profession. There were not a lot of women trial lawyers. And I was blown away by this woman. I never met her. I just knew her name. I always knew her name, Elizabeth Semmel. And I will fast forward and tell you that she is the director of the death penalty clinic at Berkeley Law. I went to an alumni event when she started in that role because I got the email saying, do you want to come to this alumni lunch? We're honoring our new death penalty clinic executive director, Elizabeth Semmel, and I was blown away. I had never seen her again. I had never talked to her. I went to that lunch. I saw her. I went up to her at the end of the lunch, and I said, people always ask you why you went to law school. And she said, yes. And I said, this is the story that I tell. And I told her the story, and she started to cry. So that just leads into what did Berkeley Law do to prepare me? I wanted to be a trial lawyer. I did everything I could to be on my feet and to learn how to be an advocate and to be a trial lawyer. So I took all the classes that I could. I was part of moot court. I took a trial practice class from David Oppenheimer, who is still here. I had dinner with him a couple weeks ago. He was my trial practice professor. I just ate it up from all of the people that could teach me how to be on my feet and be a trial lawyer. And so, all of those classes prepared me for the work that I've done ever since, and I'm incredibly grateful for it.
I'm just going to make a quick pitch for the death penalty clinic. Professor Semmel, I know, has touched so many lives, both in her role as a trial advocate and in her role here at Berkeley Law. And if you're interested in the policy issues that arise in the context of trial or in death penalty issues, she and her students issued this incredible report last year about jury selection in California specifically, and I would strongly encourage you to take a look at that as extracurricular reading. I know you have lots of time for such things. I will pass it to Mano.
Just repeat the question so I get it precisely again.
Yes, so what from your Berkeley Law experience helped prepare you for your professional achievements?
Okay. So I was sitting in a classroom just like this with David Coleman, who was the head of the Contra Costa Public Defender's Office and learning about evidence. And he said to me, or he said to all of us, there's a clinic going on. His name is Bill Veal. He's one of the attorneys in Contra Costa leading that office. And it's a criminal trial practice course. And Bill Veal is someone who's tried 6 death penalty cases to verdict. Just so when you talk about trial lawyers, that's a lot of heavy kind of cases that he's dealt with. And I remember being in that classroom, and then we went through every aspect of trial practice, and we had the final mock trial in a Martinez courthouse with a real simulation and high school students being in the jury box. And I just remember the feeling when I was doing the cross-examination with the closing. We got an acquittal with the case, and when I started doing that, I just felt like, similar to what Melinda was saying, like this really feels right. I want to be a trial lawyer. That's for me. And the reality is, as much as we see like trial lawyering on TV, trial lawyers are almost a dying breed. There aren't many lawyers who are actually trial lawyers, but I'm currently in a trial it's a 187, which is a homicide, attempted homicide, currently. And the reality is, if my client gets convicted, he'll probably spend the rest of his life in prison. And if he gets acquitted, he's going to be home with his daughter in 2 weeks. And when I did that trial, and every time I've done anything connected to the trial work, it's really felt like home for me. And that's sort of what I've devoted my career to. And now there's so much else that it springs out to. But it was just being open to that moment. And just one other example I'll talk about is I remember running across someone named Matt Gonzalez, who's now the chief attorney in the San Francisco Public Defender Office, and met him in San Francisco, and he said, come by the office on Thursdays. And he was in a trial, and I remember him, though, when he was in the hallway on the way back from court, and there was another client of his, and he only had a minute or so to talk with that client, but for that minute, that was the only person in his world. He was just so there for that particular client. Then he went back to work on the trial, and to me, I was like, that's the kind of attorney I want to be, who's really there, bearing witness to who my clients are and trying to help them get to a better place. But it started with that comment by Professor Coleman to say, take that trial practice class here. It's been a beautiful journey since then.
Thank you, Tam.
Yeah. I think for me, my Berkeley law experience felt like being a kid in a candy store because there were so many different opportunities to be involved and learn and figure out what kinds of things you like to do and don't like to do. And so for me, the best thing about this experience was just being exposed to a lot of different things, lots of different clinics and law journals and externship opportunities and everything. And so I really took advantage of that to try out different things to figure out what it is that I liked or didn't like doing. I came in knowing that I wanted to do good, right, and serve the public interest, partly because of in large part because of my background. My family were refugees from Vietnam. From the moment that I, learned enough English to help translate, as like a 5 or 6 year old, I was doing that for my family, and I know that many of you share that kind of experience as well. And that's kind of what you actually end up doing as a lawyer. You're helping to translate the law or public policy or the rules and systems for your clients, whoever they may be, right? Whether they are individuals or corporations or government institutions or your own family and friends and everything. And so I feel like some of that personal experience of mine growing up just really kind of instilled that in me. And then I was also, as a kid, always like trying to figure out how to change the rules. And my mom was like super strict, right, with things. And so I was like, how do I get her to change the rules or get around them? Which is like really, really great for a career as a lawyer and a career in public policy because you're then like shaping rules and laws and everything. And so at Berkeley Law, I did a couple of clinics that gave me the opportunity to do that, but also like really see how laws and policies impact people. And we have these like systems, with like systems and rules, right? They may make sense, they may not, they may be fair, they may not, but even like concepts around due process that get violated all the time. And so I did an expulsion representation clinic where I was representing a kid who was probably like 12 years old who was facing expulsion from school because he brought his dad's multi-tool to campus. The school called it a knife. And stuff, and zero tolerance policies and that stuff, wanted to kick him out. I was able to advocate for him and point out all the ways where the school, violated their own rules and policies, even with the expulsion process, and also was the stuff that they accused him of doing, bringing a knife to school, actually true or not, and making sure that that kid was able to stay in school, because we all know what happens when kids get expelled, especially young black and brown boys, right? Not good. And then got to do, I was also part of the East Bay Community Law Center clinic, representing clients who were had like aid denied to them, and in this case, it was because documents weren't translated for the family and stuff, and so they missed out on information that they should have, had and be able to act on. But because everything was sent to them in English, they, despite the fact that they told them that, their native language was not English, was, very wrong, as well as the kind of stuff that my family dealt with and my mom still deals with to this day. And so, trying those different kinds of things, and then I did an externship at a federal judge's office one semester. Thought it would be really cool to see what goes on behind the scenes in a courtroom. It turned out I didn't really, I learned a lot, but I also didn't see myself reading briefs all day and doing like legal research. And there are times where it's like, oh, I really just want to call that lawyer and find out what they meant when they wrote this in their brief, but couldn't do that because you have all these rules that you have to follow. So just like all these different experiences helped me to kind of hone in on what kind of environment I wanted to work in, how I wanted to spend my day, who I wanted to work with, and the kind of impact that I had. And so I think that was like really the best part of this experience at Berkeley Law, is that it really facilitates those opportunities for you and the connections that you make here with your classmates, with alumni, and folks. It really opens a lot of doors for you.
Excuse me. For me, there were a couple of activities. I'll start by talking about the law review. And I guess broadly speaking, I think part of your law school experience and your early career will be a process of kind of developing these core skills of lawyering related to reading and writing and digesting information, analyzing it, marking it up, making something new with it. And that was very much a part of my experience on the law review. And Malcolm Gladwell has this, the figure of 10,000 hours until you get mastery at a skill. I'm not sure if I hit 10,000 hours in the law review, but it felt like it. And so whether you get that here with an activity like a journal, or you will definitely get it early career, probably your first couple jobs, that metric is, I think, something that's important, and then it becomes a foundation for doing so many more, I think, interesting and exciting things in your career. My 3L year, I was elected to be the editor of the Law Review, and that was this amazing entry point into management. And so now that I run a legal department, I've run teams, that was just this amazing trial by fire into management, because the situation is you're not paying anybody, so you can't motivate them with money. You can't really fire them. They made the law review. So that it's a question of, how do I get this really smart person, most of the time they're smarter than me, how do I get them to do what I need them to do? How do I motivate this team? And so that was just a very formative experience for me that served me well. And I also want to talk about Bill Kell's new business practicum, new business clinic. Professor Kell, who's still here, he's been here for over 20 years. He runs a clinic where you interact with actual founders, most of whom are based here on campus, most of whom are coming from Haas Business School. And for me, I share the experience that Tam spoke to of being a first gen. I'm the son of Mexican immigrants, coming from a low income background. Tech is not my world. And I mentioned that I was a public school teacher in the Bronx before law school, so that was not, Apple and IBM and Amazon world. And that clinic brought me into touch with the type of folks who I work with now, and the skills that I had to develop in terms of advising founders and investors and executives. I attribute a lot of those skills to those early experiences where, because of kind of being a little bit of a fish out of water at the beginning, I'm sure that my advice bordered on malpractice, like often, but you had Bill Kell to kind of be the bumpers on the bowling lane there. And it's just, that's, any success that I can, claim to enjoy, particularly in my in-house career, comes from those communication skills, those advice skills to kind of meet people where they are, translate and prioritize legal concepts for people who, they're really focused on growing a business, pushing a product out into the world, and sometimes you have to draw their attention to, hey, yeah, that's great, but let's worry about the legal stuff too. And I attribute that to that experience.
So you just heard a little bit about how Berkeley Law set our esteemed set of panelists up for professional success. I'm going to ask Tam and Jose to answer a question about their career trajectory in the alumni community. So I'll start with you, Tam. How has the alumni community of Berkeley Law supported you in your career goals and aspirations?
Thanks, Cara. And I think I want to echo and amplify what you said earlier, how with every opportunity you've had, there was a Berkeley Law alum, that was there to support and uplift you. And that was very much the same for me in terms of either helping me to get a job or succeed in the job once I got it. I think, we have, I think I'm gonna say like two things. Like there's kind of like formal channels, right, where I've had mentors, like signed up for a mentor program and a mentor assigned to me who I was able to connect with, bounce ideas off of, get feedback and guidance in very formal ways. But I think the ones, the experiences that have been most meaningful to me are the ones the experience I've had with my peers, all of my friends and colleagues who are also my mentors. I think we show up for each other in so many different ways. I have become, folks know me as the resume editor. I love doing it and stuff, and I've helped many people rewrite and craft their resumes, and that's something that I'm happy to do for anyone in the alumni community and everything. I have had friends help me, send me job listings, but also help me prep for interviews, right? And everything, send them the job description and stuff, and and getting that feedback is really helpful. I think in most of my jobs, there's again, other Berkeley Law alums that work there or were running the office or ended up there collaborating and stuff and for example, when I was in the governor's office, our first chief of staff who hired me was Ann O'Leary, who was on faculty here at Berkeley Law and ended up working with other Berkeley Law grads there. And, one person who's there now who's very pivotal is Luis Cespedes, who is the judicial appointments secretary. He's the one who advises the governor on judicial appointments. And that's something that is a huge asset for the Berkeley Law community. And we have had many alums who've been appointed to state judgeships, and I have encouraged many of my fellow alums and classmates to put in their applications to become judges. And then there are a lot of folks who are kind of I could never be a judge. That's not something that's accessible to me. And say that is not true. That anything if you graduate from Berkeley Law, you could do whatever you want, right? And so really encourage that. And I think I'm part of an informal group of folks who support folks who want to become judges, in terms of making connections to people who are involved with the process, helping to review their applications before they turn them in, helping to get, kind of like the chisme, right? A lot of this is just what's going on, out there, who's thrown their hat in the ring, how do we support them, how do we elevate them, how do we get bar associations to support them and everything. And so we very much, show up for each other in so many different ways.
Yeah, that's very reflective of my experience as well. Would echo that in every way. If you're familiar with the work of Adam Grant, who's an organizational psychologist, teaches at a different university, but he's still pretty good. He has a book called Give and Take, where he essentially categorizes, folks in professional settings into givers, takers, matchers, connectors type folks. And in my experience, Berkeley Law really over-indexes on givers and people who want to help. And I've always attributed that to the grading system, which I think has been just a powerful pressure release valve for the law school experience here.
Yes. P equals JD.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it's a model whose innovation has been adopted by other law schools, which I think is an amazing thing just for the legal profession generally. But there's that self-selection of the givers, there's the grading system, so you have this fertile ground for the development of really deep friendships and relationships. And one anecdote that I'll give is at my wedding reception, I worked at Salesforce for a while, and one of my colleagues from Salesforce, who is also an attorney, went to a different law school. He pulled me aside and said, "Man, there's a lot of Berkeley Law people here." And he was like, "We didn't hang out like this at my law school." And I said, "That's too bad." And let's go back to the dance floor. And but it is unique. You in my cohort of friends, a lot of us went to different law schools, and I will just say that is not a universal experience, sadly, and it's a very powerful aspect of the community's culture here. And what it leads to once you leave these halls is, and I think my view and understanding as a first-gen kid of this has evolved over time. I used to think it was, I'll meet an alumni who's 40 years older than me and do the secret handshake and, drink from the golden chalice or something, and that's not how it works. It's more, in my experience, it's been, my cohort while I was on campus, maybe a few years before, a few years after, and a lot of folks who just have good judgment, who are amazing soundboards for opportunities. Is this a good fit? Do you think this is a great transition? Who do you know here? Who can you connect me to? And people are extremely happy and generous with that help, and it just creates this like vortex of support and promotion and sharing of information, and I echo what Cara said. I think I'll be honest with the law firms. Law firms are, machines of recruitment and talent attraction, and so it's less helpful there. But not that it's not there, but it's harder to appreciate just because the firms are machines at recruiting talent. With anything after that has a more or less well-defined path, that's less hierarchical, going from the third year to a fourth year to a fifth year, where you kind of have to chart your own path. That has been just an incredible asset to have, is that network and the alumni connections.
I so love what you said about over-indexing givers at Berkeley Law, and I will echo that. I think you heard exactly how Tam is a giver in her life as an alum, and I will absolutely be using you as a resource for future resume review.
Yes.
I think what Tam and Jose just described is what I think of as the culture of generosity at Berkeley Law. And I think that starts as a student, whether you are preparing for the writing competition, for the law review, and you have a group of buddies that you check in on and you say, all right, we're going to the library, we're going to do 3 hours together. Or you have an upperclassman who's mentoring you, who's sending you text messages your first semester of finals saying, you got this, only 2 more to go. And you'll see that culture of generosity transcend as you're looking for jobs, as you're trying to figure out how you should spend your volunteer hours, as you're thinking about how you want to live your life, right? You're going to have lots of times in your career where you're going to engage in self-reflection and ask yourself, what do I want to do next? The community that you have at Berkeley Law, be it the people that you're sitting with today or alumni that you meet and are paired with through formal mentoring or informal mentoring, those are the folks you're going to go to as you're asking those hard questions. And I'm confident that you'll find that culture of generosity returns back to you great advice, great connections, and exceptional opportunities. So the next question is for Melinda and Jose, and I'll start with Melinda. What outstanding traits and qualities do you see in Berkeley Law students and alumni?
Yeah, I actually started jotting this down as I was thinking about it. As the United States Attorney here in San Francisco, I hired a huge number of people into that office, and when I've been in private practice, including now, I do the same. And we opened the Paul Weiss firm in San Francisco 3 years ago, and I think all but one of our first summer associate class were Berkeley Law students. And there really is something about Berkeley Law students that is amazing. And I just started jotting down the sort of characteristics that I see when I'm hiring people from here. The first is that people are incredibly interesting. Just talking to a group of you before we came in here today, 6 of you, I think 5 or 6 of you standing around, everybody in very different ways was incredibly interesting. What they're doing now, what they're interested in doing, why they want to go to law school, and I think that carries forward. That's a characteristic that I see when I'm talking to a Berkeley Law student. They're just interesting people. They're also really good people. a lot of empathy, a lot of interest in the world, a lot of interest in making the world better. Those kinds of characteristics, I think, are really, really prominent at Berkeley Law in particular. Incredibly diverse in every way. What they want to do, what they want to accomplish, where they've come from, just diverse in every way, shape, and form. And people that are engaged, people that, again, want to make a difference, have come here for that reason. They don't, it's not just about getting a job and making a lot of money. It's really about making a difference, and that's something that I see. People that are dynamic. I mean, our first summer associate class, it was like chaos because they were all from Berkeley Law. They're all really good friends. They're now, by the way, first-year associates. We all sort of laughed about how loud it was when they were there, and which was great. And, it's loud and dynamic when they're not there, but man, when they were there every day during the summer, it was a different dynamic. So it's just, there's something very special about. And it must be the people that are attracted to, well, there's two things, the people that the school is looking for and admitting to Berkeley Law, and then the people that are attracted to this place and want to be part of Berkeley Law. And I think when you put those two things together, it's just wonderful.
Yeah, a lot of that resonates for me. The way that I think about it is, we have a community of doers. I think this university and the fact that the law school is not just like an appendage of the university, but it's an integrated part of this just amazing world-class university in any number of verticals. And when I was here, I took classes in other departments. I was at the business school for some coursework. And so the folks that we draw in and that opt in to this experience, I think, are people who want to do something. People for whom, just kind of staring at yourself in the mirror in the ivory tower, that's not enough. And you want to see your work kind of put in practice. I'm someone who leafs through the Alumni magazine, and if you're ever kind of feeling yourself a little bit too much or your head's getting a little bit too big, it's this amazing portal into insecurity where you see what everybody else is doing, and it's in every field imaginable, from service to government to industry to private practice to art. There was a woman featured recently who's this amazingly gifted artist, like a painter. It's doers, people who want to not just read the cases and understand the law, but actually take action and have the world feel the impact of what we're learning in the classroom.
I think all of that is so right. And when I look at the Alumni magazine, I'm always reminded, and I think this is something that I learned as a 1L, going back to something Jose said about the grading system being a release valve for stress. I believe that Berkeley Law students and alumni understand the success of our classmates, of our colleagues, of our alumni community as our own successes. There's nothing about Tam's success that takes away from my success. If anything, I'm privileged to join in celebrating her. And I'll give a little shout out. Tam Ma is this year's recipient of the Berkeley Law Young Alumni Award.
Following in the footsteps of Cara Sandberg, who is the recipient of last year's Young Alumni Award.
But I really think that Tam's success, the light that shines on her, it shines on me too. And I think that's something that you could look forward to as a Berkeley Law student and an alum, is sharing in the success of the people that you get to know in law school and in your career. I think, again, this goes back to that culture of generosity. Nothing about someone else's achievements makes me smaller. If anything, it just makes the law school and our alumni community and our reputation overall even greater. So I leave you with that to contemplate as you get to know your future classmates today. My next question is for Mano and Melinda, and I'll start with you, Mano. who at the law school made an impact on you as a Berkeley Law student? A professor or a mentor, maybe? Who was that person for you?
Sure. For me, I've already talked about the practical work that I did in a criminal trial practice class, and this, doing a trial from beginning to end while I was in law school made a big difference in working on every piece of it. But I was a research assistant for Professor Angela Harris, who was a critical legal studies professor here, and also Mayor Dan Cohen, who was a critical legal theory professor. So to me, it was like the practical and the theoretical, and that combination really was valuable for me. I think that as lawyers, as a trial lawyer, or as a public defender in my case, I think really thinking, literally spending time thinking, like away from the emotions with like a pad away, is a very undervalued skill, and it can be really, really helpful in the courtroom. So I found, when I was able to think about things more theoretically, it was actually really helpful. And now I found that as a public defender, I'm able to marry the two. So one thing we've done is I've been really interested in bringing community experts into the courtroom, because oftentimes there's such a gap between where the jurors are and some of the neighborhoods our clients come from. So I've started this practice of literally qualifying people that I knew in the community to be community experts. And I found the juries to be really, really hungry for that information, because I practiced in San Francisco, and even though it's a 7x7 city, not that big, the difference sociologically and psychologically between different neighborhoods can be very, very big. So bridging that gap between jurors and our clients, I found to be very helpful. That's something that I've been able to use. And just trying to be creative in things we do. You mentioned Professor Semmel. So there's a movie that came out, Judging Juries, which you can just Google. So we started a program in San Francisco called the Be the Jury program. Because of the lack of economic and racial diversity on juries, when I became elected, I approached the treasurer and I said, in the Bay Area with this much wealth, we really shouldn't have people financially hardshipping off. And now we have a program where people will be paid $100 a day compared to the $15, which has increased our economic and racial diversity in jury. And we're hoping to make that a pilot. It's been in place for a year in San Francisco. It's going to continue to be in place, and we're trying to open source that and make that the law for other counties across California, and then hopefully across the country. But I think just spending those professors who were able to stretch your mind to think about things critically really helped me, that in conjunction with the practical work.
I'll talk a little bit more about David Oppenheimer, who I mentioned in the beginning, who's still here. He was my trial practice professor. He had a civil rights background. He had worked at the Department of Fair Employment and Housing. So as we were learning how to try cases and all the elements of that, opening statement, closing argument, direct, cross, jury selection, every aspect of it, he really came at it with a civil rights background, which which was extraordinarily helpful to me later. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I ate it up. And I just knew that this is what I wanted to do. And he has stayed in my life and has had an impact on my career ever since then. And I can give you a couple of inflection points. I went to a big law firm when I graduated, Gibson, Dunn & Crutcher, but I knew I wanted to be a trial lawyer. And a real estate partner at Gibson Dunn, I still to this day don't understand why she did this, but she had I was a first-year associate. I was 25 years old. She had a client who was a French judge who owned a mansion in Montecito outside of Santa Barbara. And he had a crazy tenant in this mansion who sadly was probably schizophrenic. But he stopped paying the rent because he had all sorts of ideas about surveillance and drones, and at that time there was no such thing as a drone. But he had all these ideas and he stopped paying the rent. And this real estate lawyer there was a 3-day unlawful detainer trial in Santa Barbara Superior Court to evict this guy, and she let me do it by myself. I was 25 years old, but I was terrified because I'd never tried a real case. So I reached out to David Oppenheimer, And I was in Los Angeles, he was here, and he kind of talked me through, even though I'd graduated from law school, talked me through how to do this. And I tried that case as a first-year associate at Gibson Dunn, and I won this guy. And he was the brother of a famous director. Brian De Palma is a famous director, or Bruce De Palma, I always forget. I think Brian De Palma was the director, and his brother was Bruce. This is who the tenant was. And then soon after that, the U.S. Attorney's Office in Los Angeles was taking resumes, and I applied. I was a year out of law school, and I applied to the U.S. Attorney's Office, and I had already tried a case, and which I think probably made a big difference. And I was hired as an assistant U.S. attorney, and I tried my first federal criminal case 14 months out of law school by myself. So, you know, I look back at David Oppenheimer and give him a lot of credit for that. And then fast forward, I'll tell you one more story. When I was an assistant U.S. attorney here in San Francisco, I was I ran all of the civil rights work for the office, which included cases against law enforcement. And I prosecuted a group of correctional officers at Pelican Bay State Prison, which is a level 4 facility up by the Oregon border. There were a group of prison guards that were abusing inmates there, and they targeted inmates who had been convicted of crimes against children. In a correctional setting, those people are the lowest on the totem pole, and if their commitment offense is even known to the other people in the prison, they are at great risk and great danger. And these prison guards were revealing the commitment offenses of the people that had been convicted of crimes against children. One of them was stabbed by an inmate, they were assaulted by inmates, they were assaulted by correctional staff, and one of the correctional officers fired a shot at one of them. Did not kill him, but fired a shot. So it was a big, high-profile case. It was different from what I had done as a prosecutor. I was working with Karen Jo Coonan. Do you know Karen Jo Coonan? She was she's passed away, but she was a very well-known jury consultant who would only work with the defense side, but she agreed to work with me because I was sort of flipped and prosecuting law enforcement. I wanted David's help again, and he had this civil rights background, so I remember coming here and meeting with him several times to talk to him about the case and how I should approach it and who I should select for my jury, and then opening statements. So I practiced my opening statement for him several times. He gave me comments and feedback. And again, I give a lot of credit to him, and I'm so grateful to him for his constant involvement in my career. And it's never ended. Again, I had dinner with him a couple weeks ago. He's still in my life. And it's just, you make these connections with people here. And is this spirit of generosity that people have been talking about, that's what I've experienced here. It's just everybody wants to help the other parts of our community, everybody in our community succeed and do well in the world. And you just kind of feel that all the time.
Cara, can I just, trialers have time to stop talking, but I want to echo that point. Bill Veal was my criminal, and Susan Hutcher were my criminal trial practice professors here, and I remember being in this very heavy case, and the prosecutor come up with this one fact late in the trial, and I was like, how do I deal with that? I took the bar back over here, met my professor on College Avenue, and he gave me some great advice on it, and it worked. And I also want to echo what Jose was saying, that you're coming to Berkeley Law, but you're also coming to Berkeley, and you're coming with a rich history here and a lot of classes. So I was able to, when I was here, TA in the Ethnic Studies Department, I audited a class in the Geography department, and all of that I found coming full circle, really helping me here. So don't forget that Berkeley Law is part of a rich Berkeley campus, and there's a lot of opportunities here that I found to be super helpful.
That's absolutely right. I know I promised that we'd leave some time for student questions. Erin, I'm wondering if we have a mic that we might be able to use with students, or we can use mine if that's the easiest way forward. If you have a question, please raise your hand and we'll get a mic to you. Okay, I see one. Erin, I see one right there. I'll give you this one.
There's a hand in the back.
Again. Yeah, and if it's a question directed to a particular panelist, feel free to just note that so they know who should take the first stab at answering.
Hi, well, first, thank you for being here. And this is a question for everybody. What resources at the law school or just everywhere helped you connect with the community in Berkeley, Oakland, SF, just all around, and like just get out of the Berkeley bubble?
Anyone want to take that one? Tam, maybe?
Yeah, I think, in terms of connecting with local communities, I think that our clinics are the best places to connect with folks. The East Bay Community Law Center is a large provider of free legal services to people who are low income, and it's also our kind of in-house clinic where we get a lot of training and stuff, and they have cover a lot of different issues, including housing, immigration, public benefits issues, criminal justice issues, and everything. And I think that's where they are very much close to kind of what's going on in people's lives, particularly those that live with the least in our communities and those that face like the biggest barriers to having opportunity, whether it's economic or educational opportunities and everything.
Yeah, I can touch on that too, yeah. So I've come out and spoken at the, before it was Professor Seema Patel. I think she's at that school in the South Bay now that has red, red color. But she was here last semester, and I remember, speaking to her class, and that's a clinic that's very grounded in the Berkeley community. But also, once you have an internship, so at the Public Defender's Office, for example, if you did an internship with us, you'll have all these opportunities. We also have 501c3s, these Magic Youth Empowerment programs that are part of the Public Defender's Office. So there's opportunities to participate in backpack giveaways and things like that, and all that. We have a lot of summer programming, so you go to a couple events in addition to the legal work you're doing, and that's a way to ground yourself in the community also, just as an example. But any of the internships that you might do here would have an opportunity to connect you with broader community.
I would add that, so I was active with I forget what the name is now, but it was La Raza Law Students Association, Alianza, that's right. There were opportunities there. I would participate in direct legal services to Spanish-speaking folks through Alianza, and I think more importantly, was able to leverage, those relationships because it can, particularly in 1L, it can feel like a big commitment to commit to a clinic or to another club, another program, but that gave me an avenue to connect with 2Ls and 3Ls who were in those experiences already, and have a place to have a very open conversation like, hey, what do you like about the Workers' Rights Clinic, which I ended up joining? What do you like about this other club? What do you like about Law Review? And that for me, particularly my first semester, was this great kind of amplification of information sources to be able to connect with to folks who are a little bit further along and kind of by proxy experience what they liked best out of a lot of the other clubs and clinics at the campus, of which there are just many, many.
Yeah, and if you don't see something that's interesting, you can always start one. So.
I think we have time for one or two more questions. Who else has a question? Erin, can we go to the front row right here? Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here today. My name is Kiari Neal, and I'm curious about having more insight into your life outside of law. So I know for myself, I'd like to plan a family and raise a family at some point while also maintaining a career. So I'm not sure if you can all speak to if family planning is possible in your respective roles or what raising a family looks like in your respective roles.
Anyone want to take that one?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I have two boys. They're 26 years old, twins. One of them's a 2L at NYU. And one of his high school friends is here. Where's Jake? Hi. I heard you were here. And I work the entire time. I think it's important if you have a partner in that endeavor to have somebody who's incredibly supportive, and it's more than saying they're going to be supportive. It's really being an equal partner in that. I had twin boys and worked the whole time. I did take 9 months off when they were born because I decided I deserved as much time off as I was pregnant with them, because it's a lot being pregnant with twins. And when they were 13 months old, I took my second stint at the U.S. Attorney's Office in San Francisco. I worked for Bob Mueller, who was the U.S. Attorney at the time. He was the special counsel that did the Trump-Russia investigation. He was the FBI director after that. He was a very demanding boss. They were 13 months old, and we made it work. And I'm really glad that I stuck with it. I've loved my career. I will say I did see women step away because it was challenging and hard. And I will say that many of my friends who stepped away have come back, and which is fantastic. And I think if you love what you do, you will find ways to make it work. And I've worked the entire time, and I think they're fine for it. Jake can maybe say if they're fine. I think they're fine.
Let me first of all commend you on the question, because you all are deciding to become lawyers, but you're going to continue to be humans, and the two can be reconciled. So in our office, to me, it was very important in the public defender's office that we provide a space for parents to be there. So, for example, we've done a lot on just like, and I think there's this generation, there's strategic planning about how you should run an office to accommodate people. So to me, I'm really happy that we have a lot of mothers who have been able to stay in the felony rotation, because oftentimes that's been parents who leave the trial work afterwards. But for those who want a space away, like to me, the value is I want to retain parents in the profession. So if they have to go into another unit in our office, whether it's a research unit or a specialty court for some period of time and then come back to that rotation, that's something that I'm very committed to. But I also want to say that when you're doing this, like my middle school son came to see my opening statement, and I think it meant a lot to him a couple weeks ago to be able to watch me do that and see what we do, what his father does for a living. And I think that it's also, that's an impact for young people to see that the work you do, if you're following your passion. So, but I do think that this profession has become increasingly aware of the demands. And I also think when you're a parent, you're getting all these rich experiences that you can then bring to your work. So we as an office, strategically planning, we're always trying to find ways to make it a more accommodating profession for people who want to raise a family also.
Yeah, I'll echo a lot of that. So I'm also a twin parent. Mine are 4.5. And I would say that what I found is that there are ways to, particularly once you reach a certain kind of level in your career, or if you have the good fortune of working for leaders like Mano who take this seriously and understand that you are a human in addition to an attorney, then I think there's ways to carve an experience where you don't feel like you're sacrificing an important aspect of your life. For me, like once our babies got here, I knew that I needed to kind of carve an experience for myself. For me, it involved doing transitioning to a place now where I know the kind of cadence of our business does not make me do something that's as intense as when I was doing a lot of M&A work at my previous stints at Samsung and at Salesforce, which those I think can be very all-consuming. And so you can carve your career experience to suit different needs at different times of your career in my experience. And what that leaves me with is, I have a team. I'm part of our leadership, at the company. So, wearing that executive hat and trying to drive, all aspects of the company, not just, work hours and when it's appropriate to ask for same-day meetings, or whether, we started no calls on Fridays a couple years back, and being able to push different initiatives to make work for families. And with my experience, and I'm lucky to have the support of an amazing team as well, but people at work know Jose does every preschool pickup and drop off. That's a non-negotiable. And sadly, I think decades ago, that was not something that was probably talked about or honored, or you might get oh, that's cute, but I need you to do this. And things are we're not there yet in terms of having a holistic balance, but I think things are improving, and it's one of those aspects where, frankly, I think COVID has brought a silver lining to these types of issues, and I think we're doing a little bit better even compared to 5 years ago.
Thank you. I know that we have to keep our eye on the clock before Dean Chemerinsky's SCOTUS review, so I will invite you all to, if you have other questions, to come and approach the panelists for the few minutes we have before the SCOTUS review. But I want to take a moment, and I hope you'll join me in thanking our panelists for their time and their insights today. And I hope that this has been helpful for all of you as you start to envision what your future will look like. It's not just where you're going to move in a few months to start class. It's also where you are going to make your home for the next 3 years and where you see yourself flourishing and developing as a young attorney. So we're all so thrilled that you're here with us this weekend, and we hope that you'll join us here at the Berkeley Law Community. Thank you.